The LOI pod on Off the Ball. Catch live and exclusive national radio commentary of the Men's League of Ireland Premier Division on Off the Ball all season.
Hello and welcome to this week's League of Ireland pod on Off the Ball. Stephen Doyle here with you again. And here is what happened on Off the Ball last Friday night.
It is the derby that everyone sort of, if you're a player or whatever, you know, it's one of them things you'd always love to be involved in. One day, if you're a coach, you'd love to be involved in this one. It is, it's the biggest one in the league, without doubt, and it's one of those fixtures. And what I love about it is both teams could win 3-0 tonight for no reason.
Slide will pass, finds Whelan, clear a little ball, comes across, opportunity into the back of the net. Bohemians gets the breakthrough. It's a beautiful goal. Slid in from the left-hand side. Dawson Devoy was all over it. And Conor Parsons has got the breakthrough here. Bohemians 1, Shamrock Rovers 0. Standing in front of him, down towards our left-hand side. A packed Dalymount Park for the first time. Here comes Whelan into the bottom corner of the net. 2-0 Bohemians. Colin Whelan, the goal machine, runs to the corner flag. The big fist bump out in the air. Bohs lead by 2-0. They're on the attack again, and if they can switch it, Tierney's in open country on the left-hand side. Tierney in towards the penalty area, takes the opportunity. Tierney into the back of the net. 3-0 Bohemians. Tierney gets it in, and there is the goal of the moment. The last derby under the lights on a Friday night here at this iconic football stadium. There's a consolation goal after he missed the clearance. Green! Oh my days! 3-2. There's still a minute of football left.
It's a crazy old game.
It certainly is a crazy old game. It finished 3-2 at Dalymount Park. That was our commentator Jonathan Higgins alongside Vinny Perth in Dublin 7 last weekend. And there was a few other interesting games taking place last week in the League of Ireland. Of course, we had Shelbourne going up to Drogheda United against what you might call one of their bogey teams and taking a 2-1 victory. And then there was Derry City at home to Waterford. Another crazy match up the Ryan McBride Brandywell, finishing 4-2 to the Candy Stripes. Galway United 1-0 winners against Sligo Rovers. St Patrick's Athletic winning 4-0 against Dundalk. And then on Monday, a 1-0 win against Galway United. And well, I think Gareth McGlynn might have got a little bit carried away with the celebrations from the Ryan McBride Brandywell. Sorry about our audio listeners to the podcast. I'm just showing our viewers what Gareth McGlynn is up to right now. There he is, on the piste, in more ways than one. He's got a big beer. I can assure you that it is a big beer, and Gareth isn't too far away there. But that's what he's doing. So we've had to call on a super sub to join our man Vinny Perth this week on the League of Ireland pod. And it is a man who is no stranger to this neighbourhood. It is the great Johnny Dunleavy, the former Sligo Rovers Cork City man. Johnny Dunleavy, great to have you with us. And listen, I'm sorry you're not enjoying points up on a ski slope somewhere in the middle of Europe, but this will have to do for you today.
Oh yeah, super sub is right, Steve. I'll tell you, it's some life that Gareth has, unbelievable. But I hope he's enjoying himself. I know. Look, it's great to be back. It was a long off season, although pre-seasons now aren't as tough as they used to be. You know. Indeed.
Now, you've been taking in a lot of action so far in the League of Ireland this season, so we're going to tap into your bit of knowledge and see what you've been taking in and what you've made of all so far. And Vinny Perth is, well, he was with us. I think we might have lost him for just a moment, so we'll try and get Vinny back up as soon as we can. Johnny, you've been down in Waterford, of course, quite a bit. I know you're living in Kilkenny these days. What have you made of their season so far?
Yeah, I suppose it's the closest stadium to me, Steve-O, so I go down there as often as I can, and it's been a difficult start to the season really for Waterford, and I suppose from John Daly's perspective, he's probably finding himself to some degree between a rock and a hard place, in that unsurprisingly he wants to have Tommy Lonergan and Padraig Hammond in the team, naturally two brilliant players and two goal scorers, but the difference this year from last year is last year when they had those two in the team, it was generally in a 3-5-2 formation. And so the two lads were up front. They still had the three in midfield and they were still able to compete effectively, let's say, in there. What John Daly has tried to do is to have the two up front, but to do that with a 4-4-2. And what that has meant for Waterford from the start of the season really is that when they're trying to compete and be compact in the middle of the field, Lonergan and Hammond both have to come really deep. And it just means that they look blunt and they've struggled so far, both of them, to really have chances in games. And as I say, it's just been a difficult start for them.
Yeah, well, listen, Joe. While we're discussing Waterford, we'll go with that match first. Normally, we'll go with our feature game this Friday on Off the Ball, which is the big clash of Shamrock Rovers against Derry City. So we'll come to that in a moment. Just on Waterford, and I suppose their match at the weekend, Vinny. There'll be John Daly. Listen, we know he's a good manager and he's got a good squad of players there, but to go up to Derry City, a place where, we've seen Derry City being quite nervous so far at the start of the season, not fully convincing, but to take a 2-0 lead in 51 minutes and then to end up losing by 4-2, it's going to be a real confidence hit for that Waterford squad, especially making the long trip back from Derry City down to the southeast after the game.
Yeah, I think they're suffering from a couple of teams are suffering from this where they've performed well. You think of Sligo, first game of the season, you think of Dundalk, going up to Derry. But ultimately then, you're judged on the amount of points you have on the board, and that just builds a little bit of pressure over the next couple of weeks for these teams where you feel like you need a win. Waterford probably should have got a third goal before it all went wrong on them, and had a couple of big chances and made a couple of mistakes, and things just went away from them. And it was obviously the Michael Duffy show. But there is positives in Waterford. There's times there's stuff to like about them. You can see John is trying to create a way of playing. It's almost, he's mix and match a little bit, but there's a 4-4-2 element. I know Johnny's seen more than I have, but he's trying to get his best players into the team as best he can. I think the more time they get in the training ground and he gets his hands on that team, I think they'll be okay. Only because one or two teams aren't as good as them and haven't got as, best way of putting it, there's a League of Ireland look about a lot of Waterford's players, if that makes sense. And because of that, I think they'll know how to get the results when it matters.
An interesting one as well, Johnny, I think, is Conan Noonan, because you were talking about that 4-4-2, and I'd always think of Conan Noonan as, a player that plays off the striker or plays out wide in an attacking formation, but he's obviously playing in a deeper role in this 4-4-2 setup. Is that the best way to use him? Is there some way of combining him, Armand and Lonergan as a 3 maybe, or do you think John Daly is kind of committed to this 4-4-2 now?
Do you know what, Steve? I would have agreed with you at the start of the season. I would have said Conan Noonan's a winger or a number 10. But yeah. I was down at the game against Shelbourne, first game of the season, and for the first half, Shelbourne should have been out of sight, absolutely out of sight, and are probably missing. That's probably the piece of the jigsaw that Shelbourne are missing. We might come on to them later as a centre forward that's going to get you 18 or 20 goals a season. But in the second half, it's very unusual that a team would change both their centre midfielders, and Waterford changed the two of them, and in came Conan Noonan and Sam Glenfield. And it completely transformed them. And since then, Conan Noonan has played in centre midfield sort of in the last 2 or 3 matches as well. And I have to say, for a 19-year-old, his maturity, like how he's able to control a game, his athleticism actually getting around the pitch. You might look at him and not think he's all that athletic, but he does. He gets round really well, 2 feet, bites in the tackle. I have to say, I've been so impressed with him. And if Waterford are going to persevere with a 4-4-2, he is going to be a pivotal part of it, playing in the middle.
Yeah, and they're looking okay at the back as well, Johnny, because in John Mahon and Hayden Cann, they're pretty solid there as well, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, particularly the first game of the season, as I say, against Shelbourne, it was, for a lot of it, maybe for the first hour especially, it was pretty backs to the wall for Waterford. And John Mahon was exceptional. It was a game that really suited him down to the ground, headed, defended crosses. He was exceptional. So, in that sense, John Daly has definitely recruited well and recruited League of Ireland experience. It's just, as Vinny says, can they really develop a system now and a way of playing that is going to be effective and is going to not alone lead to the performances that Vinny talks about, but picking up the points that they're going to need? Yeah,
and the Luke Heaney right back project is still ongoing, Vinny. Is that like fullback is a specialist position? Is that something he's still adapting to? Do you think, and is that something that's still maybe like Waterford are waiting on to become, like, I suppose, the finished article?
It's hard. Johnny will tell you, we often, as players, you move somebody into a position, and for the first 3, 4, 5 weeks, it's not a bother. You think you found something, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it just hits you like a ton of bricks. You go, this position is not for me. Whether that's somebody giving them a bit of a roasting at some stage, and you just lose your sense of awareness in that position. So time will tell on that one. I'm not convinced. It's a bit like the argument around Bohs. Maybe we have it later on. Sometimes midfielders going into fullback is fine for a 2 or 3 week period or 4 week period. Over the course of a season, if you don't adapt and you don't become a specialist right back, you'll get punished at some stage. So I think that's a wait and see. I'm not so sure. The only advantage Heaney has on him is that he's so tenacious. He gets around the pitch, one-on-one. He's very, very strong for that reason. He has a real chance of playing there. But I feel there's a shortage of good right backs or left backs in our league at the moment, where we used to have a hell of a lot of them. And I don't think they've much choice to play him there in many ways. So it's a wait and see.
Vinny, Alan Reynolds maybe has a slight advantage over John Daly, going into this game on Friday night at the RSC, in the sense that he got down to see Waterford in the flesh in that Shells game, which John Daly probably hasn't seen Bohs in the flesh. Although he might have seen, I suppose he could have gone to the Aviva Stadium, although he might have learned too much from that game against St. Pat's. The other thing about Rennie is that his team were cruising at 3-0 against their arch rivals Shamrock Rovers on Friday night and conceded 2 goals. And I think that's something he'll be able to use against his players this week in training.
Yeah, we done the commentary there, and I was so impressed with Bohs. I mean, 3-0 did not flatter them in any way, shape or form. If anything, there was a chance to go 4 at different stages and really make a statement and hurt your rivals. The 2 late goals in a strange way. First of all, they took the gloss off that sort of. The Bohs fans still celebrated, but there was a little bit. It was tempered down a little bit, which was probably no harm. And second of all, though, it's a great one for Reynolds. Goes in, he's got something to show his players in the review. He's something to highlight. He can have a word with his goalkeeper for the first one. Don't come into no man's land. They also look at themselves. They made a couple of changes, and when you're 3-0 up, that's what you do. But that little bit of sloppiness in the last 4 or 5 minutes, that little kick in the ass, won't do them any harm, and it allows Rennie. You could hardly go in and be critical of the players. So after the game, that was an opportunity just to sharpen people's mind a little bit to go into the dressing room. So as much as I think he preferred to win 3-0 and get his chest out, and everyone in Daily Mount wanted to do that, I don't think that was any harm what happened on Friday. Yeah,
and I don't think as well, because listen, you're always at the start of every season, you're always going to have a team that runs away with it at the start of the season, maybe gets off to a brilliant start, has 9-10 games and maybe wins 8 or something like that, Johnny. Like we saw last season with Drogheda United, they'd have got off to a flying start, and you got to remember it's a long season, isn't it?
Johnny, this is the Bohs man trying to
he's just trying to temper down all the optimism here.
Give us a break.
I'm being a journalist here, lads. I'm being a completely unbiased, balanced journalist here.
Modesty here, Steve. False modesty.
Johnny, come on. Are they title challengers? What are you thinking? Well, I know Vinny certainly thinks they are, but it's a bit early, isn't it?
Look. It is, but you'd have to say, I have to say they are, Steve. Really, if you look at it, I mean, from a couple of perspectives, it's probably the first time now that Alan Reynolds has really put a stamp on the squad and has a full team that he wants, really. The recruitment was brilliant. They recruited very strategically, in the sense that they brought in sort of physicality as well as technically good players. And like when you add that to Dawson Devoy, Ross Tierney, Colin Whelan, who now is all of a sudden blossoming into the player that people probably expected him to become sooner. But that literally due to injuries and stuff, it didn't happen for him. But there's not very much that they're missing. And on Friday night, it was, as regards a derby performance or a performance in a big game, it was an exhibition. And that we know Alan Reynolds is a brilliant coach. There's no question about it. But you have to have the team with the ability and the desire to do everything that he's asking them to do. And I was actually talking to Vinny beforehand. Probably the difference between Bohs, let's say, and even St. Pat's when they went to play Shamrock Rovers a few weeks ago. When Pat's defended against Shamrock Rovers, they were largely passive in the game and let them play in front of them, and it was all pretty nice. There was nothing nice about how Bohs defended against Shamrock Rovers, and when they got a chance to go and win it and be aggressive, they really, really did. And then they punished them for any mistakes they made. They punished them, and they were ruthless and clinical. And as I say, it was. I'm sure now from a Bohs fan's perspective, like yourself, it was a joy to watch, and it really was. It was a terrific performance.
And you know what it was? Well, a little bit, Steve-O, before I forget to mention it, Rovers, like, when you look at, say, Victor in midfield, he looked classy. He looks like he's grown again. He looks almost 6 foot. It looks like, in fairness to Bradley, he's manages minutes, and he looks like he's gone from a boy to a man now. He looks like he's gone to another level. But he would have came off that pitch and went, what just happened there? The tenacity of that midfield, Adam McDonald will go under the radar because of Devoy and Ross Tierney beside him. Adam McDonald's running power, the physicality of Bohs, the intensity they played with. And Roberts just couldn't live with them. Healy, at different stages, was good. He's been the best midfielder in a while. But in midfield, it is an old way of putting it to you, but in midfield, Bohs were absolutely dominant. And there's a lot to be said for, if maybe one or two Rovers players might be technically better than Bohs midfield. Now, that's saying something when you consider Devoy and Tierney. But the hunger and the desire in the midfield was the winning of that game the other night for me. And that changed it, and it flipped it the other way. And just, if you go back to the first goal, it was one of the first times where Rovers went, and it was like they were just getting a little bit annoyed, and he went and pressed, and he put a real sort of effort in trying to get a Bohs defence. 1-2, brilliant pass by Devoy, and another brilliant pass, and it's a great goal by Tierney, or by Parsons, should have said. But the tenacity of Bohs and that running power and the fitness levels, whoever's looking after the fitness at the moment, I'm not 100% sure who it is, but they were right at it and worthy winners.
Yeah, we should say as well, like, Pat Fenlon got a lot of stick last season. There was a lot of supporters who were unhappy.
There's nothing wrong with that.
But to be fair to him, he's done what looks like so far. It looks like he's done a brilliant job in recruitment, and I know from speaking to people that he's been very careful about keeping his signings close to his chest. He's not letting anything out, and that's been very well managed as well. Just a quick one though, Vinny, to maybe in the negative column for Bohs. Like, every week, we're getting the team news, and it's saying fully fit squad to choose from. And it's never a fully fit squad. Douglas James-Taylor missing again at the weekend. The two full-backs were out of the game. There was no indication as to any injuries. And look, it just, to me, it's kind of, the fans kind of, is it unprofessional? Do the fans deserve to know, like, if their players are available or not? Like, I can understand maybe managers want to play a bit of, I don't know, they want to play games with the opposition, whatever. But like, I was looking, you saw Oran Casey and Paddy Barrett going off the week before last, and Joey O'Brien gave his team update and was like, look, the two lads have hamstrings, it could be a few weeks, etc., etc. What's your view on that? I think
I defend Reynolds on that one, to be honest with you. I think you've got to keep as much as you can in-house. Challenge you have so often in the League of Ireland is generally we know what's happening at other grounds through players speaking and different things. But I tell you, when you don't find out, and John, they tell you about this with his own Cork team, is you don't find out when your team is flying. Everything stays in-house. Nobody knows. There's no little rumours. Opposition aren't really sure. So it's no harm to keep the team guessing, whether it's, Colin Whelan, will he play? Will he not play? Will he play a false nine? All that stuff. And if Rovers didn't know who the two fullbacks were playing, you wonder, did that alter who they start? It possibly did, because before the game, he would have felt he could get at Flores and Morahan at right back. And by the way, the two of them were exceptional. Again, two midfielders playing fullback. But I'm okay with that. It'd be better if we all knew all of the information. But it's up to that type of stuff is up to Reynolds. That's private in-house stuff, and I'm okay with that staying quiet. Yeah,
that's fair enough. So look, the big game we have on Friday night is Shamrock Rovers against Derry City. Like, at the start of the season, Johnny, this would have been regarded, and like, this is why we picked this game on Friday night. It'll be myself alongside Richie Towell at Tallaght Stadium and off the ball from 7 o'clock for the 8 o'clock kickoff. Johnny, we would have been looking at this week's out as this is the two title contenders going head to head. Would you still regard these two teams as the two favourites you'd expect to be in the top two, top three come the end of the season, challenging?
I'd certainly expect them to be in the top two or three, Steve, for sure. Going into this weekend now, all of a sudden it's about bouncing back for Shamrock Rovers. From a game that they were outthought. Everything pretty much that could have gone wrong went wrong for them on Friday night. So it's a good chance for them to bounce back against a Derry team that, again, going back to, they won last weekend against Waterford and they've dug out a few results, but you couldn't say things have been free flowing there. And it just shows you it's so difficult when there's such a turnaround in a squad in an off season. You're bringing in 5, 6, 7 new faces and you're trying to gel them into a team. And it's never seamless and it's not an easy thing to do. So look, it's a massive game for both teams. Obviously the impetus will be with Shamrock Rovers being at home, but yeah, absolutely, I'd expect both of them to be fighting it out come the end of the season.
Vinny, the team selection from Stephen Bradley, and you've already kind of commented on it there with regard to the Bohs team. He might have been expected, but 4 teenagers in that side, Noonan, Ozzy Mvuna, Brennan, and also Corey O'Sullivan at the back. Listen, they're all very, very good players, and Victor Ozzy Mvuna, I'm sure, is going to go on to great things when he moves to Arsenal next January. Was that too many teenagers in the team, and is that something Stephen Bradley might change this Friday night when he's picking his team to play Derry City?
It feels like he's still getting minutes into people at the moment, so we don't know between the Friday and the Monday games what people are thinking. And then obviously for Rovers it was a Monday Friday game, so who's picking up injuries, who's not, so we don't really know. But it feels like, Rovers have been built on Lopez, Cleary and Grace for so long. And we know Sullivan's coming into that. We know they have a couple of other players, whether it's Enda Stevens going to join that. They've had a few other bits and pieces who can join that tree. I think I've watched Rovers twice now, the last 2 games. And I think a good example of where they're trying to find their feet are a little bit is, say, right wing back, where we've seen Sabouali play against Dundalk and then be on the bench. And Rovers have such a set way of playing that it doesn't change. And that right wing back sometimes ends up as a centre forward. And we go back to the days of Ronan Finn playing that position. And I'm not sure that suits Sabouali for argument's sake, but it might suit Brennan, who looks a hell of a good player. So just still a little bit finding out with this Rovers team from the manager's point of view. Some of them, like Trevor Clark, was in, done really well, and then all of a sudden he's back out. So it feels like he's spoiled for choice, and you just wonder whether he's nearly too many choices at the moment, just to find that rhythm in the team. And then once you're flying, then you can bring people in and out. So it's a difficult one. Like, how can we second guess Bradley? He's done so well. He's generally got the team selection right. But this is different now because he's never had so many young players coming through. Over the last few years, it was a very experienced team. You would have expected that midfield to be people like, whether it was Healy or whoever before him, there was McNiff, Bourke, Bourne in that box midfield. And they're no longer that. And it's going to be interesting to see the team still respect them the same way as they did over the last few years, because Bohs certainly didn't. And maybe there's a bit of a blueprint there for others to go and look at and say, just go and get after them and see, can you get the young players to fold?
Yeah, like Lee Grace was an unused sub against Bohemians for that game. Johnny Corey O'Sullivan, as Vinny rightly points out, like, he's got a lot of minutes under his belt. He's a absolutely fabulous player. He can play left of the back three, left wing back, left in midfield. So he's a very, very useful player to have in your squad, as well as an upcoming talent. But would you expect Lee Grace to come in for a game like this against Derry City on Friday night?
I suppose it's a game that you probably would expect him to come in and start if he is fit, like, just given it's such a big game and such an important occasion. But like Vinny's so right as well, Steve, he's blessed with so much talent in the squad now, and these young players coming through are complete, like, they're a different level. I mean, having watched Brennan probably twice now this season, you probably think, are they going to be able to replace Josh Honohan, one of the most difficult players arguably to replace from last season? And he's come in, he's looked a complete breath of fresh air in the team. Really, the freedom that he plays with sort of when he's attacking is brilliant to watch. So it's just about Stephen Bradley now finding that balance of, yes, we want to blood the young lads, yes, we want to give them as much experience as we can, but equally we can't afford Bohs to go 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 points ahead of us, so it's about finding that balance. And look, he will find it. I fully believe he will find it, and it could well be on Friday night.
Yeah, they do come up against a man on fire in Mikey Duffy, And like from a defensive perspective for Shamrock Rovers, Johnny Dunleavy, can you give them any advice there? I know you would have played against Mikey back in the day, didn't you?
No, I was only talking to you before the show, and I had mentioned, like, if you go back to when Vinny was at Dundalk, and they would have started, they had Darryl Horgan playing left wing, say I was playing right back, so that's every time you come up against Darryl, that was a torture. And then Darryl leaves.
There's a wee point in the Cork City team, lads. We'll stick Horgan on him there.
Oh yeah, sure. This is it. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Target that fella. So you have Darryl playing left wing, and then you think he moves to England, and you think, oh, well, sure, look, at least he's gone now for a while. Maybe easier next time. And of course, they go and bring in Michael Duffy. So I know. Look, Michael Duffy he's one of the best players that there has ever been probably in the League of Ireland, and at the moment, I'd say this last 2 years, 3 years, even. He's just evergreen. It's like he's getting better. And I suppose that game against Waterford at the weekend, it was a perfect hat trick, right foot, left foot, and header. But you were speaking earlier about Luke Heaney playing right back for Waterford, and of course he's finding his feet and he's learning, and it's tough. You're learning on the job, I suppose. But the higher up you go, if you think of the goal that Michael scored where it comes over his head, he's probably 4 inches underneath the ball. But at that level, that's all it takes, and you get punished for it. And it's a phenomenal goal, absolutely phenomenal goal. Like going back to your question of how do you defend against him, stop the supply as best you can. First of all, I suppose stop the ball getting to him, and then it's really about can you get a midfielder across to double up on him, because he is that good. He's got all the tools: right foot, left foot, can go inside, outside. His delivery is exceptional. Takes all the set pieces. So.
Well, that's interesting, Johnny. Sorry to cut across you, but if Rovers, as they will do, play a back three with the wing back, so is that then the job of the right centre back and the right wing back to man up then to double up on Mikey Duffy on Friday night?
It probably is to some degree. Like if you have a right centre back that is athletic enough that they can cover or are comfortable defending the wide areas down the channel, you can certainly ask them to drift across that way. And if Michael Duffy is one-on-one with whoever's right wing back, whether it's Boali or whoever it is, that they have some cover in behind. But equally, as I say, when he comes inside, he's got such a good delivery on his right foot as well that he's just a very, very hard man to defend against. And he's a pleasure to watch anytime you get to see him.
Unplayable, is that the word, Vinny? The annoying word that they use nowadays in modern day football.
Yeah, do you know what? I think Johnny summed it up well. We didn't use the target Johnny, but it was handy having Horgan followed by Duffy. He made it a bit easier. I'm not saying Johnny was the problem there now, but it made life a bit easier then too. Do you know what? It's because he has a bit of everything. That's why it's hard to mark against. I mean, when you look at him goal, when he stands you up, Johnny, and it's almost like you have him. He has the ability then to shimmy onto his left foot, and you think Michael's all right-footed here. He's done 3 or 4 things with his right foot. He just shimmies onto his left, and he takes off, leaves you for dead, and strikes it early. But he has a bit of everything. And doesn't. I was going to say doesn't take his football too serious, but that nearly sounds like a disrespectful way. There's free-flowing about him. There's a street footballer about him. And for that reason, it just makes him really good. I think he's obviously helped. Michael's at his very best when he plays when you've got a good left-back behind him. And I don't mean a defensive one. Sometimes it's one that goes beyond you. Just a great little pocket. He comes in. How often have we seen him come in on his right and Ben Doherty, really good. Whether it's been Fleming at different stages, they have a good combination. They help him. You go back to his heyday in Dundalk. Massey, he used to drive Massey mad. Massey just sprint past 10, 12, 13 times, and he never got the ball off him. Now, it's funny, Horgan never gave Massey the ball either, so I think Dane might be the common denominator in that one. But to be fair, so look, Michael has it all. As a manager, you think a turn an inch at half time. There's often moments in your career as a manager where you look back to, and maybe half time, Turner will look back to that one and go, Michael saved my ass there. And hopefully from Tiernan''s point of view, it turns out to be a sort of big moment in their season and in his season, because I'd imagine if that had stayed the way it was, there was a huge amount of noise coming his way in the second half there, and Michael scored. The 3 goals were brilliant, as Johnny said, and that's what he does. Right foot, left foot, no problem. But you can also head the ball in the back of the net as well. So
Yeah, I think I remember compiling the stats. I think last season he got the match winner in 5 games, and I think 3 were 1-0s or something like that. It was, and that, when you think of it, that's like 15 points essentially won by Mikey Duffy, and again he's doing it last Friday. Just elsewhere on the Derry City team, are we thinking they're going to be a bit more balanced here, Johnny? With they've obviously brought in Cotter to bring that bit of balance in the back four. Stott and Paddy McLean are, they're a strong pairing there as well. And as Vinny's mentioned, Brandon Fleming, they should be decent enough to take on the Shamrock Rovers attack.
Yeah, they should be, Steve. I suppose, again, going back to that's the difficulty of gelling players into the team. And obviously, Stott and McLean at centre back, it's kind of like they need to get back to keeping clean sheets first and foremost. Like, they've conceded 6 goals this season, which is double more or less any other team in the top 6. And you could argue they have a brand new centre-back pair, and so do Bohemians. But the difference with Bohemians is it's only the centre-backs have changed. Outside of that, really, the team is more or less where it was before. Whereas the Derry team, you've 2 new centre-backs. You've got a new right-back now in Barry Cotter, as you say. You've James McLean in centre midfield. New players further up the pitch. So it's just, again, it's a sort of a teething thing and something that they're going to have to gel on quickly. But they are all very, very good players, and no question about it. They needed a right back, and they've sorted that with Barry Cotter coming in. So you would certainly expect them to become more solid, definitely as the season goes.
Pico Lopez.
The big question for me, tactically, Steve-O, is, big question tactically is, does Tiernan go back to a back 3 and match up Shamrock Rovers? And we touched on that last week a little bit. I think that's a mistake Derry have made for a few years, whether it's been under Rory Higgins or not. I think the lesson, and it's why I touched on Bohs last week, Dale Rooney, Parsons, that sort of, and that running power in and around that and exploiting the back 3. I don't love back 3s, but if you have the best team in the league, then the back 3 will always work for you. It has worked for Rovers for a number of years. But if you imagine Fleming overlapping Duffy, you've already discussed it, who comes out, who doesn't. The switch of play against Rovers sometimes is their one weakness, you would say. So you're down the right-hand side, throw it out to the left-hand side for a little bit of an overlap. So it'd be fascinating to see the team sheets and then the setup of Derry. Do they just go and match Rovers? And I think if they do, they may go on and win the game. But I think I wouldn't be in favour of doing that. I think just go and be what you're very good at. And that's, for example, Michael Wide on the left.
Yeah, and it's a pretty, it's a boggy pitch there. I was there last night for the women's game. So we're still to see the best of the pitch at Tallaght Stadium. Just on Shamrock Rovers, one last little thing in Shamrock Rovers, Vinny. Like, Roberto Lopez got done a couple of times by Josh Thomas in the President's Cup match at the start of the season. I'd imagine that's motivating Pico going into this game on Friday night. He's going to say, right, I'm going to show this young fella what I'm all about.
As much as I joked about it, but the thing about and you could, I think Derry are nearly suited, believe it or not, to playing in a game like Tallaght. I think they're big players. Sometimes when you have big players, they might be playing well, but they turn up on the big games. Big game away to Rovers and Tallaght. Expect Derry to be very, very good. But the flip side of that is, seeing Monday night, Grace was poor against Longford at different stages, or against Dundalk, should I say, at different stages. Particularly down to 10 men, they struggled at different stages. But the big game where they need to win, Lopez, Grace, I think, will start. I expect Subawali to start, Cleary to start. I expect the big names to be rolled out, roll up the sleeves, and you sort of fancy Rovers to put on a performance of champions, and I expect them to be really, really good this week. I think they are the best team in the league, and it's nights like Friday where I think they'll show it. So I think you touched on it. That President's Cup might have meant nothing to Rovers, and it meant the world to Derry at the time, and rightly so. But there will be a little bit of revenge sought after with players. So expect the likes of Lopez and that to stand up on Friday night and be very, very good.
Yeah, it's an 8 o'clock kickoff, and you can hear it all live and exclusive on Off the Ball from 7 o'clock is when our coverage begins on Friday night. At the same time, you got Shelbourne taking on St Patrick's Athletic at Tolka Park. Vinny, you've been impressed by what you've seen of St Pat's over the last couple of games. They got a 1-0, like 2 back-to-back clean sheets is brilliant for them after how the season started. And then, of course, the man who's given everybody a reason to get on up is James Brown, playing at right back.
Shocking. Well, first of all, go back to Friday for a second. After your shocking introduction there, Steve-o. Back to Friday for a second.
Terrible, sorry.
Zach Evazetti, Rowan Palmer, getting people back. Stephen would allude to that. All getting on the score sheet as well. Really good. And then you go into Monday night. Max Mata came off the bench and made a real impact. Obviously, the goal he scored from Keane Levy was a brilliant finish from him. But something Johnny might laugh at this. I might sort of understand it. Stephen Kenny spoke about James Brown and he said he's a Raider. I love Raiders. And when he spoke, it was the first time since he's left Dundalk I felt I was listening to the real Stephen Kenny there. I was like, you love your fullbacks going forward. Why have you not done it for the last number of years? He'll say he maybe didn't have them different bits and pieces, but he just said, like, there's a lot of lads in our Dundalk dressing room would have heard that comment and had a little wry smile. He's a Raider.
Oh, Vinny, sorry when I heard that line, I was kind of going, woof, this sounds like the old Stephen Kenny. It was the way he kind of said the word Raider with a real enthusiasm, didn't he? It was brilliant.
Yes. It was brilliant. And it really caught my ear. I really heard it and I was like, because in my mind I'm going, I felt whether it was internationally, he went away from what he was brilliant at, getting his fullbacks on. He'll have his own excuses to that, and people will say I'm whatever I am. Maybe I'm saying it for a reason, but it just sounded like the first time in a few years. It sounded like the real Stephen Kenny there. That line around James Brown being a Raider really resonated with me, and I can't understand why no one else has got Brown at this stage. I think I've spoken about him for a couple of months, and obviously timing, and when James probably was chasing other things in England, but Pats have made a real coup getting that player into the team. And the importance of him being so good is making other players better. And that's the point about fullback sometimes, can make your right winger better. Johnny would know nothing about that being a centre half converted into that right winger.
Never crossed the halfway line, Vinny.
No, but all joke aside, you get me point, John. A fella, really good right back, makes a good right winger look brilliant at times.
Oh yeah, there's no question about it. Probably the best example, sure, over the last 10 years would be Sean Gannon, where anyone that plays in front of him just looks like a brilliant player. And I'd say you're spot on. I'd say James Brown is exactly that for them. I mean, at the minute he's keeping Ronan Boyce out of the team, who would have looked to be a big signing for St. Pat's as well when he came in. But it's unbelievable what a difference a weekend makes. Not to mind a week, like from last Wednesday or Thursday, and you're thinking this is tough for St. Pat's at the moment. There's people questioning Stephen, and all of a sudden 2 clean sheets, 5 goals, players coming back. Looks like the real St. Pat's.
Yeah, it really does.
Even lift Keane Levy up. That picture of lifting Keane Levy up was brilliant to photograph. No. Yeah. And that's the management that we've spoke about for a few years and we haven't seen. I know it's still going on in the background, but that little moment, the players will get a little chuckle about that and probably slag Keane Levy about it. But that's all part of the building of it.
Yeah, no, it's just the manner of the goal. It was a brilliant finish. It was scored in the 90th minute, like against a really good Galway United team who were playing very well across the whole game. It just kind of came at the right time where that'll give them a huge boost of confidence. And as well, Johnny, the fact that, the centre-backs and the goalkeeper as well, they'd be just delighted to keep 2 clean sheets in a row. Like that to them, that's even better than the goal for the defenders and the goalkeeper as well, isn't it? Because Anang was really good.
Oh yeah, for sure, Steve, and it's something that's so important to Pats. They've obviously got technically very gifted players and lots of attacking options, and they did have last year. It's that steeliness or that solidity that they lacked, that they didn't have. And Sean Hoare coming back into the team is going to be massive as well. That's something that's probably gone under the radar to some degree. But, as you say, against a stubborn Galway team, and Galway are stubborn, and for that reason, Galway will be fine this year, as far as I'm concerned. They won't lose games by many, and they obviously held Shelbourne and they very nearly held Pats. But to dig out a win on Monday night as well, it's just massive for the group. It's massive for Stephen, and you can sort of feel the confidence building. I still have that lingering question over them that when it comes to a big game, can they stand up and perform in that big game, or will they fold? So I'm looking forward to when they are tested in that regard. But as I say, a brilliant weekend for them and delighted to see it.
Yeah, Tallaght Park's
and Johnny on the Friday.
Yeah. Sorry,
Steve,
Vinny,
just one big point, and Johnny will tell you this as a player. The Friday, Monday are huge, isn't it? Monday, it's okay not to play well, but Friday, if you're going to win a league, Friday, Monday's usually important. But even if you're going to be in a European spot, picking up those 6 points over a weekend gives you such a boost. And it is hard for players to go Friday, Monday, but it's like, how good is it to get the 6 points over a weekend?
It's massive. When they come in on Tuesday morning or whatever for the recovery, it's unreal. And as I say, it probably showed some of the players that they brought off the bench as well on Monday night. The cameo from Mata, all of a sudden it looks like they've got a squad that's capable of competing and capable of getting their 6 points over a Friday, Monday, which maybe 2 weeks ago you'd have thought, no, they can't. Yeah,
and it's the challenge for Shelbourne and Rovers this weekend because they'll be meeting on the Monday. And just to look at Shells, Vinny, just one goal from open play from a non-defender in their 3 matches. John Martin's goal against Waterford. Harry Wood's got a couple of penalties, and he had Sam Bone scoring on Friday night. So it's just the same old problems for Shells. And again, without Barrett and Casey most likely this weekend. Joey said last week it's going to be a few weeks for them. So they played a back 4 against Drogheda United. Does he stick with that against Pats this Friday night at Tallaght Park? I don't know. Just seems to be a lot of questions and just concerns around this Shelbourne team, I think.
Yeah, I think they've been a little bit unlucky. The strength and depth in certain areas aren't there. Like Casey and Barrett look like potentially a hell of a sort of partnership, the two of them against, like the first 45 minutes, Johnny touched on it earlier on, the first 45 minutes against Waterford was the best performance I've seen from anybody this season, with the exception of Bohs the other night, but it was only for 45 minutes. And the strength and depth and the little bit of the lack of sort of players ready to go on the bench didn't help them. Now they've lost those 2 centre halves, and Meebo's a strange one. It doesn't look like he's improving as a young player. That's probably the worst thing you can say about him. Or learning about his movement in the box need to improve. They've got a lot of crosses in at different stages, and they need more from him. And sometimes you need your Woods and different people banging in goals. I get that, but they have the makings of a great team. But for me, I don't know whether it sounds strange or not, but they need the good weather to come. They're such a lovely team, but they mightn't be a team ready to go and fight. And that sounds like it's like in their character. It's not. I just mean stylistically, they just need that quick pass and move. The likes of Wood, Jarvis, them type of players. Whether it's Henry Francis in midfield, he looked like really neat, tidy footballers. And with the pitches a bit heavier at the moment, it's a bit more of a slog. I wonder. They need to stay in the title race if they're going to compete over the next sort of month, to give them that freedom for when the pitches get a little bit better. So that would be me the defence of them. But it has to nearly start this week. It can get away from me a little bit quickly in the first 7-8 games.
Yeah, it sure can. And look, Jack Henry Francis, we were so impressed with him, Vinny, in that opening night. He has been around for the last 2. So there's himself, Casey and Barrett. Like we saw last year, Johnny, how much they missed Paddy Barrett. Like they obviously managed without him last week. Sam Bone and Ledwidge played as the 2 centre backs. This might be, I'm not saying Drogheda United weren't a tough test for them, but you know, it's at Tallaght Park. You might get a bit more expansive play from the St. Pat's team at Tallaght Park on Friday night. Could it be a bit more difficult for them to try and do this without Casey and Barrett, who were so good at the start?
Yeah, it's going to be a completely different test for them anyway, Steve-O. Like when you go to play Drogheda, you know you're going to play against a difficult team, no doubt, but quite structured and rigid in how they play and pretty direct at times, really. I suppose the difference now with St. Pat's on Friday night and particularly with the players that they've got coming back into the team, as I say, like Mata Edmondson up front, although not prolific, he is a handful, there's no question. Levy has been exceptional over the weekend, probably 2 man of the match performances, really. So it's going to be a completely different test for Shells. And as you say yourself, like the 2 lads coming out, Casey and Barrett, not alone are you losing 2 big presences, 2 like physically strong players. I was so impressed with Casey down in Waterford. I have to say, he is He's an exceptional presence in the team, but you're also losing characters in big games. And Paddy Barrett's a leader. He's a leader in that group. And when he's not in the team, they're going to suffer for it. So, look, it is going to be difficult for them on Friday against Pats. But, you know, going back to Talca Park and obviously having the home support there for them, they'll be hoping to put on a good performance. Yeah,
absolutely. That game also at 8 o'clock on a Friday night. A couple of other games then that we want to have a look at before we get to our little Ask the Expert section. Vinny, Sligo Rovers, I know we spoke off air before today's podcast just about Sligo Rovers. You know, I just kind of get the feeling, you know, John Russell, as we know, you know, he's turned things. You know, when things look like they've been going bad for Sligo over the last couple of years, Johnny Russell has been able to turn things around and get his team playing. Looking at his team selections over the last few weeks, I still get the sense, is he still trying to find his best team?
Yeah, I think so. When you look at, say, Hideki, Alex Nolan, both coming off the bench, you would have expected them, if you were picking a team, to be in it. So obviously, well, we don't know whether they're injured either, but obviously there's a few lads coming in and out there that you're not 100% sure of. Look, Ryan O'Kane, Archie Meekinson, Will Fitzgerald, all good players in their day. James McManus, as we know, really good player. And I just think defensively they haven't fixed the centre-half position yet. And whether you can alert somebody at some stage to do that, that's going to be the challenge for them. It feels like I predicted Sligo might struggle this season at the start of it, only because over the last, if you think of the resurgence at the second half of last season, it was down to the ability to bring in League of Ireland players with League of Ireland experience, right? And they have an element of that in their team, but probably not enough of it in the key areas. And their spine is probably not, like, their goal scorer, Chiore, is he good enough to get enough goals when it matters? Are they good enough in the two centre-half positions? I know they played Quirk in midfield, McManus in midfield. Are they good enough right down the spine? I'm not sure. They're good enough on the fringes of it. Isua, right back. So it feels like they're short of a couple of players. And while they've turned it around for the last number of years, I just hope this isn't the year that they get cut out, because there's a lot of strength and depth above them this season, and who they're trying to chase down not to be in the relegation zone.
Yeah, and I suppose especially at centre back, Johnny, that's where there's been a lot of chopping and changing. And most recently, it was young Gareth McElroy, who I think he's a player with huge potential, and literally is huge. And then you've got Carr McHugh, who I know Gareth McLean has been talking about the last couple of weeks on the podcast, how much his experience is going to add to the Sligo Rovers team. But bloody hell, he goes and gets a red card in the Connacht Derby, so he's going to be out for a couple of matches now. So that's a real headache now going into this match against Drogheda United as well.
Yeah, it is, of course. Card's actually a fella I know pretty well. He would have played with my brother growing up, and great lad and a very, very, very good player. The red card was probably, I've watched it back a couple of times. It wasn't really that bad a tackle, although his studs were raised. So look, it's one of those things. You could argue it either way. Disappointing for him, but you know he'll no doubt bounce back. I think just going back to Sligo in general, and having seen them down in Waterford, they had one chance in Waterford after about 10 minutes. It was Archie Meekinson pulled it wide of the left post, and after that, really, they just didn't look like scoring at any point in the game. And I think that's the worry I would have for them this year. Like if you compare them to Dundalk, for example, another team that haven't won yet this year, but you can sort of see in Dundalk they carry a threat. There is a threat there. They will score. They will pick up points. And I just don't know, does Sligo have enough of a threat or enough goals in the team? As Vinny rightly says, is Traore going to get 15 goals a season? I'm not sure. And on top of that, another sort of maybe issue as well is that they're technically a very good team, but do they have the physicality and the athleticism through the team, like in the centre of midfield, to compete with other teams? I'm not totally sure. So look, it has been a difficult start, but if anyone can figure it out, it's John Russell and Ryan Casey, and I hope they do. Yeah, absolutely. Well, they're going to be at home this weekend against Drogheda United, and Vinny, like Drogheda United, there was an awful lot of stuff going off the pitch that we were kind of saying, oh, poor old Kevin Doherty, like it's just, it's been really unlucky for him. They started off with a couple of wins away to Galway United, then at home to Waterford.
drew then the Louth derby, which wasn't a bad result at all. The first one this season at Oriel Park. A defeat last week against Shelbourne, a game, the fixture they usually do well in. And then on the weekend after that game, in fact, on Friday night, this video goes out. It was, well, I saw first posted by a journalist who I did reply to in the comments on their social media post, just saying, look, it was really bad form. Kevin Doherty had made some quip off before the interview had started, so it was essentially off the record, and I said, look, it was really bad form to be posting a video and making Doherty look bad. I've spoken to Kevin Doherty over the weekend, and he was explaining the fact that the cameraman working for LOI TV that night is actually a Dundalk fan. He and Kevin know each other really well, and they're always having a bit of slagging and a bit of crack off mic, and he'll have a bit of a go at Dundalk, and your man will slag Kev over Drogheda United and so and so. So he said, look, there's no bad blood between them. It's not something obviously he would say normally when he's talking about Dundalk. That it was all just a bit of joshing before they started the interview. But unfortunately, somebody decided to go up and post it, which I thought was really bad form. I know there's a few managers. I think Kevin's been talking to a few other managers as well. I think they're going to be a little bit more cagey when it comes to interviews after the game. It mightn't have been the best thing for us in the media for something like this to happen. So I don't know, Vinny. You were a manager. You're a manager of Dundalk. You're an assistant manager of Dundalk. You know the lay of the land when it comes to the media and how it operates. What did you think of the whole situation last weekend?
I think we've had two or three problems where the cameras have been rolling and people have said something they shouldn't have. So that's one thing, and I think that needs to be fixed. And I know because of the stream, there's a reason why that is. So managers need to be so careful. But once they're interviewed, then and you know you're being interviewed, I think that's completely different, Steve. That's the start of an interview. So if you're not willing to say those things, then don't say them at all. I think I'm disappointed by the comments. There you go. There will be an element of me and Drogheda and being a Dundalk. I'm not a Dundalk man. People think I am, but I'm disappointed with them comments. I think if Bradley had said them about Bohs, there'd be an uproar. I think if people said, he shouldn't have said them. You need to be more careful. When you're in the
even if he's joking, Vinny, do you think?
Careful.
Seriously?
Yeah. There's a time and a place for it, not in front of the camera. Particularly when things are going against you in terms of they've had a lot of noise around their club and there's a time. Look, it feels like I give out about Kevin a lot. I love what he's doing. I love the job he's done. I've a huge time for him. But that was a mistake. And you can sugarcoat or can pretend, oh, sure, Kevin sound, it's okay. But that was a big mistake to make. And particularly what representatives, as in fans, done on behalf of Drogheda up in Oriel Park a couple of weeks before that. And it may not be the prettiest ground, but either is United Park at times. So, people in Glasshouse shouldn't throw stones. And again, if he's only joking, he's only joking. I just think it didn't need it to be said. I think you got to be more careful in the world we live in. That doesn't mean you can't do. His interviews at times are very good. They're honest. They're from where it matters. And it sounds like I'm having a go of maybe him or Drogheda. I'm not. If you heard me on Friday night, I think Drogheda's response to what went on up in Oriel Park with the flares, etc., has been exceptional. I think they should appeal the as a result of their actions, they should appeal their ban in terms of the away fans. I think they've stood up as a club. They've been brilliant, and Kevin has been part of that. They've stood up and they've taken responsibility, and their actions have been brilliant. And Drogheda should be maybe on an appeal. I think having all of the fans punished because of the behaviour of one or two is something the FA could look at because of Drogheda's response was so good. I understand you have to draw a line in the sand, but I just wasn't overly impressed by that comment, and I'm just saying what I heard. And Kevin will have a different view, and he won't like me saying it, but I'll just say what I think.
Yeah, no, look, that's fair enough. Absolutely fair enough. That game is on Saturday between Sligo Rovers and Drogheda United. So looking forward to that one. Always nice to have a Saturday game when you've been covering a match on the Friday night. Finally then, just before we round up the games, Galway United at home to Dundalk. John Caulfield maybe surprising a lot of people. Well, I say surprising a lot of people, Johnny, because you know John Caulfield well. Surprising a lot of Galway United fans, because every Galway United fan I spoke to at the start of the season, it was all doom and gloom. Oh, that we don't have the squad. You know, we've lost a lot of players, a lot of experience. It's looking like we're going to be in the bottom two. And there's John Caulfield's proving everybody wrong once again. And we still haven't even seen the super signing Franz Pierrot, but we might this weekend.
Yeah, for sure, Steve. I mean, it's no surprise to me. And I mean, one thing's for sure certain, that with the John Caulfield team, they'll be organised, they'll be hard to beat. And as I said earlier, you know, there won't be many teams that beat them by more than one this year, that's for sure. I suppose if you looked at it from a Galway fan at the start of the season, and you saw Greg Cunningham going and Gary Buckley going, Brendan Clark, Hickey, Rob Slevin, it looked like a sort of an exodus of players almost. And some of the players maybe he brought in would have been slightly unknown. Obviously, I would know Chris Twardek from playing with him at Sligo, and he started off very well. But you can see already he's put his stamp on this squad, on these players, and they're going to be so hard to beat. And then when you add in a little bit of quality, like someone like Jimmy Cohan, I mean, the goal against Sligo on Friday night was a brilliant goal. Brilliant first touch, 1-2 with Stephen Walsh, and right buried in the top corner. So I suppose when you make a team hard to beat, and you've got that little sprinkling of quality in there as well, look, I think myself, Galway will be absolutely fine this year, and it's no surprise to me that, you know, that the season has started well for them.
And just on his character, Johnny, because sorry, Vinny, just one quick thing. The one thing about John Caulfield as well, you never hear him in the media complaining about the loss of all those players. Like, you know, we lost all these fellas and struggling to get guys in and all that kind of thing. You'd never hear him complaining or moan. He just gets on with it. Yeah,
no, that's it. I suppose he keeps the head down, and he's just... The way I would always have described him, Steve, was that he's just a winner and really professional in everything that he does. Like, I can remember when he came into Cork first, just some of the small changes that he made around the training ground to almost make the atmosphere feel more professional, or the players feel more professional every day, and that you came in every day and you knew your job, you knew what time you were starting at, there was a team room for the players, he made us all get together, the sort of structures he put in place made you feel so professional. So I've no doubt he's brought exactly the same to Galway. And as I say, you can see it in their performances. They're so organised, so structured, diligent defensively, and yeah, they'll be awfully tough to beat.
Sorry, Vinny, go on ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just making the point this weekend. That's a huge game for both teams. And I know it's only 4 games. Like, when you look at Dundalk, up until the Pats game, did a brilliant start to the season and they were unbeaten, etc., etc. But they played 4 games on 3 points. And I'm not a mathematician in any way, shape or form, but you'd been better off beating 10-0 in 2 of them and winning the other 2 when you'd be on 6 points instead of, you know. So it feels like both of them, same with Galway, it feels like Galway get a win this week. It's been a really good start to the season. That put them on 7 points after 5 games, or Dundalk on 6 after 5 games. If Dundalk or Galway lose it, they're probably watching what Sligo's result on Saturday with a lot more interest than they would be by winning, you know. So it's already that stage, and people say it's only 5 games. What's he talking about? But when you're a player or a coach, you're always watching what's around you. So it's a big night. That game is huge for both of them, and that is a really interesting tie. Dundalk have to lick their wounds after last week. A little dose of reality. The Premier Division is tough. Some of the young players will realise that. But we do like the sort of structure, the spine that Dundalk have. They've got to turn a couple of those good performances into wins and wins quickly. But it's set up to be a really good game.
Yeah, looking forward to that one. On them all. This weekend in the League of Ireland. As I said to you, we will have the match between Shamrock Rovers and Derry City and Off the Ball this Friday night. Coverage from 7 o'clock. Kick-off is at 8. I'll be alongside Richie Towell at Tallaght Stadium for that one. And we will, of course, have LOI Late Night with Ben and Shane on X. Do log on there, and you can, of course, talk to the lads if you want to about your club in the Premier or First Division, or if you're a Women's Premier Division fan looking forward to the start this season, jump on and have a chat with the lads at 10 o'clock on Friday night when all the games are finished up. So that brings us along nicely to our Ask the Expert slots. Johnny and Vinny, we've got a couple there. Yeah, he's
McGlynn's not here.
He's still drinking pints. He's still drinking pints on the ski slopes. I'll tell you one thing, Vinny.
I've seen a picture of him, Steve-O, with a pint, and the pint looks bigger than Garrett. Now, he's not the tallest chap in the world, Garrett, but
yeah,
he certainly suffered with his attitude. The shoulders are bigger than his body, you know.
He was standing way back from the camera, Vinny. It had to be just.
Yeah, Brona, our show producer here, was just said she got an email off Vinny as well, wondering how much is Garrett McGlynn getting for his fees if he's going on skiing holidays in the middle of February. Anyway,
you know, he has more holidays that fella than Catherine Thomas ever did.
One for the teenagers there. Anyway, so we've got a longish one here from Rob, which I'll put to you both. It says, hi lads, do you think match tickets are too expensive given the lack of facilities? I recently paid €23 for an away ticket in Tallaght Park, where the toilet facilities are subpar, no shelter and poor access in and out of the ground. I've been going to league games for more than 20 years and the majority of grounds have barely changed in that time period and in some cases have regressed. Only a few clubs seem to take this seriously, or at least make it public that they are actively trying to improve their stadium or even build new ones. Giving a ground a lick of paint and cleaning is all well and good, but it's the bare minimum, and clubs shouldn't be praised for doing so. It's 2026 and we still have Portaloos for toilets in some grounds. So yeah, that one on Tallaght Park. Look, I think, you know, to be fair to Shelbourne, they're doing some improvements in the ground. I see they got new seats in the stand behind the goal, up at the other end of the ground, and I suppose bit by bit they're trying to make improvements. It's hard, I suppose, when you've got a small enough budget, although some people say, look, they got the European money over the last couple of years. But look, they're not the only ones. Sligo Rovers away end, toilet facilities not great. Bohemians, toilet facilities aren't great either. Even if you're in the Jolie stand, it can be hard to get to them. Queues, all that kind of stuff, and there are Portaloos being used beside the stand. St Patrick's Athletic. Look, you could go on and on. So I don't want to seem like we're singling out Tallaght Park, Oriel Park, Sullivan and Lamb Park. None of them are perfect. But then it comes back to the ticket cost, Vinny. €23 he paid into Tallaght Park. What's your view on that?
I don't. So like I didn't work a couple of weeks ago, and I won't say where I was. And I pay into the grounds and I'm okay with it. I don't think it's overly expensive for what you're getting. Now, the opposite side of that is the ground I was in recently, I drink too many cups of tea every day and I couldn't get myself a cup of tea. And I just couldn't. It was physically impossible. Went a couple of places. So we do need to improve the facilities. I don't think you can go much lower than 20 odd quid for a ticket. And still have a product on the pitch. So it's just a fine balance. But the facilities aren't good enough. There's an easier way of doing things. I'll give you, I was recently down in Waterford. Today we were down there, Stephen, and the small example of what they've created there is very easy. There's a small bar of food at the side of the stand. The accessibility, that was exceptional. Johnny probably knows it better than me. But I just felt that was one of the first places. I know people have bars in the ground and different things, but that was one of the first places down in Waterford at the RSC where I went, this is exceptional. It was missing anything, a bit of a cover over it. I was in Brighton the weekend, and it's very similar. The only difference is Brighton has one of those sort of out tents, they call it a fan zone. I think clubs have to start looking and saying, can they introduce fan zones to their ground? There's spaces in a lot of the grounds to create this environment, and I think that will take away a little bit from what's actually in the grounds, because we know our grounds need improvement. The finances aren't there to do it, so I think clubs have to think outside the box, and Waterford has certainly done that. They're one ground that I know that I felt really comfortable. I got good food if I wanted it, good tea facilities, and there was beer and stuff around as well. So I think it's a balance with all of them things in my view.
Yeah. What's Johnny on the away ticket thing? Like, I suppose if you're an away fan, you're paying 23 quid. Like, and again, I don't want to be picking out individual clubs. We could go across the board. All of the away ends at all the grounds have their issues. So, do you think 23 is a fair price, or should they be a bit lower?
Yeah, no, I think I would probably make them two separate issues. Essentially, really, I don't think €23 is probably far off being reasonable value at the very least. But definitely, in order for us to progress as a league and a country, our match day experience and facilities have to improve. And they have to improve quickly. Like as Vinny said, Waterford have, let's say, they've thought about it and maybe put in this little bar area outside, which is great. But you probably don't even see incremental improvements in other grounds, or even teams or clubs trying to do things better. And as the person with the question rightly said, you probably underestimate as well people's goodwill and how much people will give if you just ask them or go and seek them out. Can you help us out? And we'd love to get the dressing rooms painted or tiled. Yeah, no problem. We'll help you out. And that's it's thinking and it's seeking people out, and as opposed to just literally looking at a problem and saying, well, the problem is we don't have the money to fix it. Well, okay, then we can all see that, but how can we go about even making it incrementally small bits better all the time, that in the long run then it becomes a significant difference? Because at the moment the match day experience is just not good enough. And the way I always describe it is, if you were to have a 10-year-old, let's say, for example, and you take him to probably, let's say, probably half 9 of the 18 League of Ireland grounds, he'll be thinking, what's going on here? This is the top level of football in this country, the best players in this country, and these are the facilities that we have to sort of put up with while we go to watch them. And just in my opinion, as I say, it's not good enough, but there are solutions at least that we can get a little bit better.
Very well put, yeah, I totally agree with you, Johnny. One other one here, well, it's a two-parter, and so I'll put the first part, I have to put the first part to Vinny, and I think this is the reason it ended up in our spam folder, apparently. It must be because it had Vinny Perth's name in the email. So I'd imagine that was just Bauer Media's firewall immediately went off. Stick that one in the spam folder. Will Vinny ever go back into coaching?
No.
Oh, jeez. That's a great answer, isn't it?
Very definite no, Vinny.
Here, folks, can we clip that one and stick it up on the socials there? That'll get great attention on it. No. Any more to say about that, Vinny? No. You're too busy. Too busy coaching GAA. Here, you won a bloody league. Come on. You're wasting your talents, Vinny. You're wasting your talents on here talking nonsense with us.
I agree with you. But no, I mean, I'd much rather people saying I can't get a job and all of that stuff. So maybe I shouldn't answer that way and said I can't wait for the next one. No, I'm okay. The game was really good to me. 20 years between playing and coaching. But it's tough when the lights go out, Steve. Johnny will tell you a little bit about that. When you stop playing, you try and stay involved. I love what I do. I love the game. I probably love the game more now than I did ever before. Like you take this weekend, I went to Bohs and Rovers, and I went to Forest and Brighton, Pats and Galway. I just love the game. But do you know what? I don't see myself ever going back. But that's I said no. It's highly, highly unlikely. It's not something I'm longing for in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, well, Vinny, I love working alongside you as a co-com, so I hope you stick with us for a while anyway. That question from Richie, who had a second part to his email, Johnny, and he says, and I know we've got one in the women's side of things, the All-Ireland League, but Richie was asking in the men's side of things, should an All-Ireland Cup competition be brought back?
It was something obviously that was mooted a few years ago, and as a progression for the League of Ireland and maybe both leagues, that they would come together. And I think it was Kieran Lucid maybe came up with the plan, and there was a plan of having the games on Sky Sports. And to be honest, when I was looking at it and I was having to think about it, you could have the first league game of the season, Shamrock Rovers away at Linfield and Windsor Park, and you can imagine the cameras and the atmosphere and everything. I think it'd be brilliant to have the competition coming back again. It was, I suppose, the Satanta Cup as it was previously. I would have played in it, and largely anyway, it was the League of Ireland teams that would have won it. We probably we were a little step ahead of the teams in the north, but it's brilliant competition, brilliant atmospheres, and I don't know, maybe bring it in as obviously our seasons don't align, which is unfortunate. It could have been brought in maybe as a pre-season tournament, but I'd love to see some of those games again for sure.
Yeah.
Dave, I'm just looking at my top shelf here in my cabinet. I think here
we go.
What was it called? Unite the Nations, when we beat Linfield in the All-Ireland last competition that was played. That's there. And so is the League Cup as well, if you want to bring that competition back.
It's like Uncle Albert. Uncle Albert and Only Fools and Horses here. Remember the war.
I'm not coming back. But if you're looking for those 2 trophies, they're residing in my gaff at the moment.
But in all seriousness, like these young players nowadays don't know how easy they have it. Like, surely you could throw a third competition in there.
I think the League Cup is a no-brainer, and you could structure in a way that and why? So you take the pressure off the manager a little bit. Sometimes a League Cup defeat, a heavy defeat, when your things are going bad for you, right, doesn't suit certain managers. So how do you sort of take that away? And the pressure of a club is you almost make it that out you're starting 11, 6 have to start the game for me under 23s, and there must be must be under the age of 23, and 4 more must be on your bench or whatever. So you have 10 players that are under 23 in your club. So therefore, even as a manager, you might even pass that role over to your sort of reserve team, or your under 19s manager, whatever the case may be. But I think the League Cup is a brilliant tool for people. And it's also, once you get to the final, Johnny, I tell you, once you get to the final, all bets are off. Everybody wants to play in that. It's a cap in their feather. And I remember around with a couple of players that never played one game in it, and all they wanted to do was play in the final in 2019 when we played there in the Brandywell. So I would definitely bring that competition back, and I think there's definitely room for it, because it doesn't need to be at the start. All bets are off. You must win.
Well, Vinny, your link went a little bit there. I'm just hoping you did say a feather in the cap and not a cap in the feather. But anyway,
not sure it was.
You won't be the first.
Anyway,
time.
And if the FEI need the trophy back, but still want for them.
Great stuff, lads. It's been an absolute pleasure. Johnny, thanks a million for joining us this week, and I'm sure we will have you back on again during the season, and surely we will have you alongside me for one of the games as well, or a couple more games throughout the season. It's been brilliant chatting to you again, and to you, Vinny, and to you folks. Thanks for listening, and hopefully you enjoy whatever match you go to this week. We'll chat to you next week.
The LOI Pod on Off the Ball.